My studio process over the last 17 years has been focused on using the suburban setting as my subject matter, looking at the ordinary, the mundane, everyday type things that you might run across. Certain shows do have a particular subject matter, but quite often, especially with the last two shows, I don't try and focus on anything in particular. It's almost like when you hear songwriters saying that a song comes, I kind of wait for things to arrive and whoop, that's interesting, I could do something with that. The narrative has always been an important element within my work. Quite often I use the figure, sometimes without the figure. Certain paintings I might just start off with one figure, and I don't do any pre-sketching. I usually go straight in, so just a natural response to a basic idea that I have. I start with a gesture, and as soon as I've got a gesture of the figure, that gesture starts to suggest the doing of the situation. What's that person doing? Maybe it might suggest bringing in another figure, then what's happening between the two figures in the way that they're interacting, their movement. I start to build it up. So you start off with a general idea, a general movement, and those things start to link up with thoughts and experiences, and it's like a story or a novel being built, that you develop the depth of the story, and I tend to always want to have an answer as to what's going on. Something definite has to go on for me to continue on with the picture. My on plein air work has really informed my studio process, basically in the sense that when you work on plein air, you have to work quickly, responding to the environment. The way I work in the studio these days is generally I like to finish a painting in one session, even if I've got a large painting. It's about that moment, that particular experience of that situation. So it's a little bit like on plein air, that you've just got that instant to capture, and that's what's important, to just get that particular moment down and not to take it somewhere else. In some ways, I guess I am a little bit of a closet abstractionist. Perhaps most artists are, because we are attracted by shapes, colours, and the way they work together to evoke an emotion. But one of the things that really interests me about any sort of subject matter before I get to the narrative is particular shapes and the design element, movement, colour, shape, and how they come together to create a particular situation then that evokes an emotional response. Even though my paintings tend to be quite busy, I really like to think that one day I can simplify things really just to a pure shape and colour, perhaps. I have visited abstraction from time to time, but I always do return to the narrative. My painting process over the last 6 years has really taken things back to the inception of oil painting, back to the beginning, where just the pure materials were being used without any solvents. And that was the reason behind that, was because I was reacting to modern solvents and chemicals in today's paint. So the only way that I could continue painting was to go back to the pure beginning, where just pigment, oil, chalk, and egg white and other natural things were being used. These days I make all my own paint, because even the non-toxic paints still have some dyes in them to which I react. I clean my own oil, because modern oils are cleaned, industrial, like commercial oils are cleaned with solvents. These days I use the iPad as a studio process that feeds into my painting process. It's a really handy thing. Of course, it's like a portable sketchbook. The other thing where it's very handy for me is that quite often I can choose to use a program which limits the way that I normally do work. So it forces me to use colours that I may not use, or using bold colours, which gives me like a Fauvist or a pop art type element, which I can then translate to my painting. For me, the iPad is a really versatile thing. I can make sketches, I can make finished works, I can alter the way that I want to work. Of course, with the iPad, you're more cerebral, you haven't got the physicality of the sense of touch and the visceral element of working physically with paint and brush. You've just got a mechanical surface. So in a way, I do sense that I'm working more cerebrally with my head rather than with my gut and with my heart projecting emotion onto the canvas or onto the drawn element. But in a sense, there's a depth of technical aspect that it has that you become familiar with in the same way that you do with your paint.